Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to what is it?
Day 11.
Is it the 11th? Okay, day 11 of the Bhakti Vaibhava seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam, the second canto. And today we're in chapter 4, and we'll try to finish chapter 4. We're starting at verse 16. There are 25 verses altogether. Let's see how it goes. So the chapter title is The Process of Creation, and we're in the last section. Shukadev offers obeisances and prepares to reply. Okay, so let us begin by offering our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachatish Tarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasani Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakapataribhyascha kripasindubhya evacha, Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, okay, so let us begin with verse 16. Let me offer my respectful obeisances again and again unto the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, the highly intellectual, simply by surrendering unto his lotus feet, are relieved of all attachments to present and future existences, and without difficulty progress towards spiritual existence. All right. So there's fairly extensive purport here. First paragraph, just a little bit, that Krishna has repeatedly instructed Arjuna and via Arjuna everyone that they must become his unalloyed devotees, everyone. Yeah, beginning with Arjuna. So, towards the end of the 18th chapter, Lord Krishna instructed Arjuna like this, very confidentially and very decisively, culminating in verse 66, that give up, abandon all varieties of religion, just surrender to me. So from 64 then to 65, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto, you should think of me, become my devotee. And then 66, just surrender to me. So Lord Krishna is making it very clear we should become his devotees. So that takes us on to the second paragraph. And Prabhupada comments that intelligent people they'll really note these last instructions from Bhagavad Gita. They'll really note them because they're so clear and conclusive. And they're right at the end of the book. And, it's hard to find a book. I don't know if you'll ever find a book which doesn't culminate, bring everything to a conclusion at the end of the book. So this is very important then. These are important verses in Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada then goes on that knowledge of the self, that we're not this body, That's the first step in self-realization, and that's called confidential knowledge. And this culminates in this knowledge in Bhagavad Gita, that then you become a devotee and you perform devotional service. So this devotional service is always based on love of God. And it's distinct. This is an important point. It's distinct from the formal, routine activities, formulaic activities, which are prescribed without exception, really, in karma yoga, jnana yoga, or dhyana yoga. Yeah, there it's all process. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and you make progress like that. But here, it's deeper because it's based on love. Yeah. So, of course, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives instructions for all types of people with all types of interests in yoga and meditation and worship and so on like that. But the essence of all that, the essence of all those different instructions for different people is that ultimately, however you got to that point, however you got to the point of surrender, but you should surrender. Yeah. You should surrender to Krishna and become his devotee. And this person then, such a person becomes perfect. And this is called, Prabhupada says, Brahmagati, mentioned in the verse Brahmagati. Brahma meaning spiritual and Gati meaning the goal, the conclusion. This is the conclusion, spiritual conclusion. So Srila Prabhupada refers to Srila Jiva Goswami, who says that Brahmagati means to attain a spiritual form as good as the Lord's. Yeah. And in that form you live with the Lord in the spiritual world. That's Brahmagati. And of course this is easily and naturally attained by the devotee. It's just an integral part of what the devotee is doing, or natural, you could say natural conclusion, or that everything just naturally leads to that. Yeah, so at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes Bhagavatam 10:14-4. Let us just read the translation of that verse. My dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the best path for self-realization. If someone gives up that path and engages in the cultivation of speculative knowledge, he'll simply undergo a troublesome process and will not achieve his desired result. As a person who beats an empty husk of wheat cannot get grain, one who simply speculates cannot achieve self-realization. His only gain is trouble. And then the third paragraph, Prabhupada makes the point, Bhakti Yoga is the highest quality of perfection. Achieved by intelligent people in place of doing a whole lot of different spiritual activities. So, and Prabhupada makes the point at the end of the purport here, the example being given here is very appropriate, that just a handful of real rice paddy in the husk, but the paddy, the rice itself, the edible paddy is still there, is more valuable than heaps of paddy skins. Yes, just the skins, and the actual rice is no longer there. Yes. So similarly, we shouldn't be attracted by the jugglery of karmakandya, jnana-kanda, or even the gymnastic performances of hatha yoga, but we should just take to the process of hearing, chanting, remembering, etc., the 9 processes of devotional service under a bona fide spiritual master. And in this way we'll easily achieve perfection. So we go on to verse 17. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna again and again, because the great learned sages, the great performers of charity, the great workers of distinction, the great philosophers and mystics, the great chanters of the Vedic hymns, and the great followers of Vedic principles cannot achieve any fruitful result without dedication of such great qualities to the service of the Lord. So all these nice qualities, like giving charity, working nicely, being very philosophical, chanting mantras and all that, and others, that if they're not dedicated to the service of the Lord, if they're not engaged in service to the Lord, then, well, you can only achieve perfection in them when they are engaged in the service of the Lord. Otherwise, they're basically sources of trouble. Yeah. So everything, Prabhupada makes the point, everything can be used for yourself or for service to someone else. And in a certain sense, there's no qualitative difference between personal selfishness and extended selfishness. Doing something just for me or doing something just for my family or my nation. It's the same principle. Prabhupada says theft for yourself or for your family is no less criminal. Right. So unfortunately, people don't know that your self-interest becomes perfect when that interest coincides with the Lord's interest. Like it's in your interest to preach Krishna consciousness. It's very good for you. But it's in the Lord's interest also, because he wants people to learn about him and become his devotees. So therefore your interest, his interest, they're the same. Yes. So Prabhupada gives an example. What is the interest? What is the interest of maintaining the body? You earn money to maintain the body, personal or social body, but unless the body is being maintained for Krishna consciousness, the effort you're making is the same as that made by the animals. That's pretty strong. But the purpose of maintaining the human body is different from that of the animals maintaining their bodies. We can learn, we can make economic development, do pious activities like charity, etc. The animals don't do things like that. But we can, but they must be done for Krishna. And no one or nothing else. So, yeah, Prabhupada refers then to Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 verse 27, very famous verse that whatever we do, whatever we eat, whatever we offer or give away should be done as an offering or as a service to him. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the expert leaders of a godless human civilization cannot bring about a fruitful result in all their different attempts at educational advancement or economic development unless they're God conscious. And to become God conscious, one has to hear about the all-auspicious Lord as he's described in literature like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. All right, so we go on to verse 18, and it's a bit of a classic. I mean, it is really quite a classic, actually, verse, talking about all different types of human beings, different races, and, how they can be purified by taking shelter of devotees. Kirata huna andra pulinda pulkasha abira shumba yavana kasadaya. Oh, okay. Members, I'm reading the translation, members of the Kasa races and even others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord due to his being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So these are all different races, groupings of peoples. And here in the purport, very extensive, Prabhupada from paragraph 1 to paragraph 8, Prabhupada gives a brief synopsis of what they are, where you can find them or found them in the past or find them now even. So first of all is Huna. And Prabhupada says that they live in East Germany, part of Russia. Yes. So then Andhra, well, they are people, first of all I missed Kirata. They're the Aboriginal tribes of Bihar and such areas of like North India. Then next is the Andhras, and they're from Andhra Pradesh. Yes, it still has the same name. Pulinda is generally the Greeks. Yes. Abira is people situated on the river Saraswati in Sindh. Sindh is now part of Pakistan. Yeah. So it's those people. Yes. They are the Abiras. Right. Then the Shumbas or Kankas, they are inhabitants of the Kanka province of Old Bharat. Not exactly sure where that is. The Yavanas are the Turks, and the Khasas are like the Mongolians and Chinese, like that. So we get to the 9th paragraph, and Prabhupada explains that these are different nations, specific groupings like that. In many cases, they're physically distinguishable from the others, or from others. You can see just by looking at them that they have very specific characteristics which other groupings do not have, of color, of, the the shape of the eyes in some cases anyway. But even there are others too, not mentioned here, but they are engaged in sinful activity generally. That's their way of life. So if they take shelter of devotees plus all these other groups we read about, then they can be corrected. And Prabhupada says Jesus and Muhammad have done good work in this regard because they were working with some of these groups. Not all of them, but some of them. And yeah, they helped. But Prabhupada makes the point, I mean, it's a pretty powerful point, that if the leadership of the world is entrusted to ISKCON, then there can be great change of heart in humans all over the world, because all these different people then will get association with devotees. And Prabhupada says the politicians can stay. The devotees don't want political positions. They just want to see that the people are nicely engaged in Krishna consciousness and not cheated by the oftentimes rather crummy politicians. And Prabhupada makes the point, and it's such an important point to get, that whether it's today, tomorrow, or the next day, that this materialistic system of current civilization is doomed. That there have been many people, I remember when we would go out in the early to mid 70s, at least I was there from January 73 onwards, there was one man, and he was out on Oxford Street, the main street of London, one of the main streets of the world. He was there, at least whenever we were there, which was, we didn't go out on Sundays, but every other day we were out there, and he was there. And he was walking up and down. He'd walk up and down with a placard and with leaflets. And the placard said, "The end is nigh." So there have been many people who've been expecting the end, like some sort of, not just world war, but some sort of really total devastation to occur. But so far it hasn't. But Prabhupada says it's going to happen sooner or later. It's not a matter really of if, it's just a matter of when. But if the current politicians would take advice from the devotees, there'd be a great change for the better, as happened when Lord Chaitanya was present. So, yes, okay. So Lord Chaitanya recommended chanting the holy names. That should be like the fundamental program. And in this way, misunderstandings between nations created by the politicians can be extinguished. I mean, that's a bit of a challenging type of program, but it's true, actually. And who knows, sooner or later, it'll probably just come to that. So, paragraph number 10. So, in Krishna consciousness, there's no bar for anyone. Anyone can become God-realized. The devotees can make anyone into a devotee. If they're low-born, women sudras, vaishyas, or whatever, they can become eligible to go back to Godhead. Just one thing, they have to take shelter of a pure devotee who understands the science. And anyone from anywhere can become such a pure devotee. Yeah. Even the most sinful can come to the point of being pure Vaishnavas. So Prabhupada makes the point that Varnashram is no longer really functional, even amongst people who say they're following it, because it's all now on the basis of birth. So Varnashram has become defective. Yeah. So by the order of Lord Chaitanya, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, the chanting of the holy names must be spread, and then real transformations can occur. Right? Because Vaishnavas never look on other Vaishnavas from material perspectives of caste or creed or birthright. Just as they don't look at on the deity as being made of stone or some material element. Right. So then the 11th paragraph, it's really quite a purport, this. So the conclusion, what's the conclusion? Is that the Lord, being all-powerful, can, under any and every circumstance, accept anyone from anywhere, either personally or through his bona fide representatives. And Prabhupada makes the point that Lord Chaitanya, he accepted many people as devotees from communities which up to that point were considered to not be. It's just, there's no question of that. Yeah, and he himself, Lord Chaitanya, said, Naham vipro nacha narapatia, napi vaisho nasudra. He said that he didn't come from any caste or social order. And what did he say he was? Gopi Bhartu Padakamalaya Dasa Das Anudas. He's simply the eternal servant of Krishna, who's the master of the gopis. Okay, so verse 19. He is the super soul and the supreme Lord of all self-realized souls. He is the personification of the Vedas, religious scriptures, and austerities. He's worshipped by Lord Brahma and Shiva, and all those who are transcendental to all pretensions. Being so revered with awe and veneration, may that supreme absolute be pleased with me. So Prabhupada begins the purport by saying that the Lord, even though he's the Lord of everyone, all the people are following all the different paths of self-realization, but still he's only knowable by those who are above all pretensions. In other words, some of these people following some of these other paths, they're pretentious. Yeah. So Prabhupada explains, those on the transcendental path, they usually have 4 types. The karamis, they're into fruitive activities and enjoying life. The jnanis, who want to become one with the Lord by mental speculation. So they're mukti kamis. The karamis are bhukti kami, Kami, one who's desirous of. Yeah. Then there's the mystic yogis. They're called siddhi kami because they're desiring mystical perfections. But then there's the devotees who don't want anything for themselves. Yeah, so the karamis want material enjoyment for themselves. The jnanis want to become one with the Lord for themselves. The mystic yogis want the mystical powers for themselves, but the devotees don't want anything for themselves. They just want to serve the Lord. And therefore the devotees are called nishkami. Nishkami. They're desireless. So Prabhupada makes the point that the living entities, by constitution, they cannot be actually desireless. The bhukti kami, mukti kami, siddhi kami, They desire something for personal satisfaction. But the nishkami devotees desire everything for the Lord. They're always ready to do what he wants to satisfy him, and for themselves, they don't mind, whatever. Paragraph 2. In the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was acting as a bhakti kami, someone who wants to enjoy by having, nice social arrangement, lots of friends. He didn't want his friends and relatives to die. So he would be in that category, material advancement, material happiness category. But to bring him to the point of desirelessness, nishkama, Krishna preached Bhagavad Gita. But the thing with Arjuna was he didn't have pretensions, Prabhupada says. So therefore he changed his decision and fought to satisfy Krishna, so he became desireless. Third paragraph, examples are given: Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, because they are Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the four Kamars, and Lakshmi. They're the leaders of the four, Prabhupada says, the four desireless Vaishnav Sampradayas. So they're all free from pretensions. Jiva Goswami interprets the word from the verse Gata Vyalikai as Projita Kaitavai, that it's about those who are freed from all pretensions, unalloyed devotees only. And Prabhupada then quotes the famous verse, which actually he's been referring to. It's Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 19, 149. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ata Eva Shanta. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta, which translates that the Krishna Bhakta has no desires, Nishkama, therefore he's Shanta, peaceful. The Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami, those who want material enjoyment, liberation, merging, or mystic powers, all of them, they're not peaceful. Yeah. So Prabhupada makes the point that the Lord is actually for everyone, because no one can really achieve their goal without his mercy. Yes, that's stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 9, and all those results are awarded by the Lord only. So that's everyone. And Prabhupada lists out the Vedantists, the great Karmakandiyas, the great religious leaders, great performers of austerity, and all those who are striving for spiritual advancement. Their results are given by him only. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, but ultimately he's realized by the pretensionless devotees only. Therefore, special stress is given to the devotional service of the Lord by Srila Shukadev Goswami. Okay, so now verse 19, which there's also is it 19? No. 20, excuse me, which has another mega purport. Oh dear. Anyway, let's see how it goes. May Lord Sri Krishna, who is the worshipable Lord of all devotees, the protector and glory of all the kings like Andaka and Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, the husband of all goddesses of fortune, the director of all sacrifices, and therefore the leader of all living entities, the controller of all intelligence, the proprietor of all planets, spiritual and material, and the supreme incarnation on the earth, the supreme all in all. So may that Lord Sri Krishna be merciful upon me. Yeah, so Prabhupada begins the purport by saying that since Shukadev Goswami is one of the prominent Gata Vyalikas, who we mentioned some minutes ago, meaning those who are freed from all misconceptions, he therefore expresses his own realized perception of Krishna as being the sum total of all perfection, personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada discusses in different ways, because there are multiple paragraphs, that everyone wants favor of the goddess of fortune, but they don't know her beloved husband is Krishna. In Brahma Samhita, the Lord is said to herb Surabi cows, and he's served by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune, who are all manifestations of his pleasure potency. And when he was here, he partially displayed this in the rasa dance, just to attract the conditioned souls. So Sukadeva and other pure devotees, they discussed that, the rasa dance, not in relation to sex life, but to relish the transcendental taste of service, how service is being done in these wonderful ways, which is inconceivable to the mundanas who are very preoccupied with sex life, which Prabhupada says is the cause of conditioned life. Shukadeva, of course, is not interested in that. And the Hladni Shakti, the Lord's pleasure potency, by which the Lord enjoys whatever he enjoys, it has nothing to do with sex life. And Lord Chaitanya was a very strict sannyasi, wouldn't allow ladies to come anywhere near him, even to bow down, but still he said that the best form of worship is that of the gopis. So Prabhupada concludes, and Srimati Radharani is the principal head of all such goddesses of fortune, and therefore she is the pleasure counterpart of the Lord and is non-different from Krishna. So Prabhupada goes on, Vedic rituals, sacrifices, demigod worship, and all, yes, they are the results of the favors given by the Lord himself. Yeah. So those who are in illusion worship the demigods, who are all minor. But the devotees know that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices. So therefore the devotees do Sankirtan Yajna. Otherwise, any other form of yajna is not feasible. In Kali Yuga, 3rd paragraph. Bhagavad Gita tells us, chapter 3, verses 10 to 11, that at the beginning of creation, Lord Brahma was instructed to do sacrifice. So if we do the same thing, I mean, he then created nicely. If we do the same thing, sacrifice will never be in difficulty and ultimately will get spiritual benefit. So therefore Prabhupada makes the point, and it's a famous point, it's stated at the end of Bhagavad Gita. So we must never give up sacrifice, charity, or austerity. They are all sacrifices for pleasing the Lord. Paragraph 4. So Prabhupada explains All living entities have intelligence according to their karma, which is under the control of the Lord. Therefore, one person can remember easily, and another is very intelligent, and another is a fool. So the Lord is Diyampati, the Lord of intelligence. So, paragraph 5, the conditioned souls try to use their intelligence to lord it over material nature. And Prabhupada says, this misuse of intelligence by the conditioned soul is called madness. That's really, coming to the point. Yeah. So, intelligence should be used for getting out of material clutches. But due to madness, they engage fully in sense gratification, and in the process do all sorts of nonsense for which they get very bad karma. They become entangled as a result. So everything belongs to the Lord. He'll let us use some of it under his control, but not just as we like. That's the instruction, of course, of the Ishopanishad. Yeah. And Prabhupada says, it concludes the paragraph, it is out of madness only that one tries to encroach upon another's share of material possessions. And then the 6th paragraph, the Lord comes out of his mercy to reestablish relationships with us, and he gives instructions to surrender, and he shows what an amazing position he has. And Prabhupada says the conditioned soul is very proud of becoming the husband of even one wife, but the Lord laughs at this. So the intelligent man can know who is the real husband. So actually it's an interesting point. Factually, the Lord is the husband of all the women in his creation. But a conditioned soul under the control of the Lord feels proud to be the husband of one or two wives. And then the last paragraph of the purport, Prabhupada begins by saying all these qualifications as the different types of pati mentioned in this verse are meant for Lord Sri Krishna. And Shukadev has therefore especially mentioned the pati and gati of the Yadu dynasty, the master and goal of the Yadu dynasty. So the Yadus, of course, they knew Krishna, he's everything. Their intention was to return to him after his pastimes are finished. They were annihilated by his will because they had to go back to Godhead. And this was a special show by the Lord. Yeah, it was a material show created by the Lord. Yeah. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the Lord is therefore the guide of all devotees, and as such, Shukadev Goswami offered him due respects with love-laden feelings. 21. It is the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna who gives liberation. By thinking of his lotus feet at every second, following in the footsteps of authorities, the devotee in trance can see the absolute truth. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their whims. May the Lord be pleased with me. So he's asking for blessings. Blessings, lots of blessings. Okay. So Prabhupada says the trance of the pure devotee is deeper than the trance of the mystic yogi who's trying to see the supersoul. pure devotee thinks he's fallen into the ocean of birth and death and prays to the Lord incessantly to lift him up. And by the Lord's mercy, the devotee loses all interest, all attraction to sense gratification, and to stay free, he always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. Right. So, and then Kula Shekhar's famous prayer is quoted, and Prabhupada refers to it in the second paragraph. There's an intimate relationship between the swan and lotus stem. So without becoming a Paramahansa, swan-like person, one can't enter the network of stem of lotus, of the stem of the lotus feet of the Lord. Brahma Samhita says speculators can't even dream of the absolute truth, even if they speculate forever, because the Lord reserves the right not to be exposed to such people. These people have different speculations, so in the end they compromise by saying, as many conclusions, as many ways. Yeah. But Prabhupada says the Lord's not like a shopkeeper trying to please everyone by having all types of goods imaginable. The Lord is what he is, and he wants surrender. And the devotees can see him by following the acharyas through the spiritual master. And the four sampradayas, they all say the living entity is the eternal servant of Krishna. And none of those acharyas think that he and the Lord are one. And the third paragraph, the pure devotee is so humble. Yes, so humble that the Lord reveals himself. Yes, the Lord gives him intelligence to be enlightened with factual truth. So he reveals himself when satisfied by the service attitude of the devotee. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Shukadev Goswami is not a mental speculator or compromiser of the theory of as many ways, as many conclusions. Rather, he prays to the Lord only, invoking his transcendental pleasure. That is the way of knowing the Lord. And 22, may the Lord, who in the beginning of the creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and of his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, be pleased with me. So like we said, or like the title of the section says, that he's praying for blessings and mercy in his Krishna consciousness, Shukadev. So, okay. So the Lord gives everyone whatever knowledge they have, as Supersoul, from Brahma to the ant. And a devotee, a living being, can have 50 60/4 or 78% of the knowledge of the Lord in small amounts. So since we're small parts and parcels, we can't assimilate all his knowledge. And that's shown by how we forget of the previous body, the previous lifetime, when we take birth in the next life after death. But then he awakens our knowledge. And so, for example, we can then function as humans. So this awakening is under the control of the Lord. So there are different grades of knowledge in different people. So Lord Brahma is described that he was born first, certain different characteristics. It's in the middle of the purport, more or less. He was born first, no father or mother, because there are no other beings around. Born from the lotus, so he's known as Aja, the one, well, unborn literally. He's also a living entity like us, but being the most pious devotee, he was inspired by the Lord to create. Yeah. So scientists, they can just observe the reactions of material energy. They don't know how it's working, just like a child can't understand how the electricity is working and how the powerhouse is working, which in South Africa, of course, it's not doing very much. It's a pretty sick situation. So Brahma got knowledge from Krishna. Therefore, that knowledge is called Apaurushaya. The Vedas are called Apaurushaya because Paurushaya means from, just like a regular person. Yeah. What the Lord speaks is transcendental, very different from material sound. And the physicists and the scientists, they can only deal with material sound. So therefore they can't understand the Vedic sound unless they get access through disciplic succession. Therefore no mundane scholar can translate or reveal the true imports of Vedic literature. Only people are inspired by a spiritual master. So anyone who doesn't get knowledge in that way should be considered useless, despite his or her impressive material education. So Prabhupada concludes by saying that Shukadev's praying to the Lord, is praying to the Lord by dint of being inspired from within by the Lord, so that he could rightly explain the facts and figures of creation as inquired by Maharaj Parikshit. A spiritual master is not a theoretical speculator like the mundane scholar, but is Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. Which, yeah, okay. Verse 23. May the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enlivens the materially created bodies of the elements by lying down within the universe, and who in his Purusha incarnation causes the living being to be subjected to the 16 divisions of material modes which are his generator, may he, the Lord, be pleased to decorate my statements. So again, there's an extensive purport. So Shukadev, he's fully dependent devotee. He wants to invoke the pleasure of the Lord, so what he says will be successful. Devotees always think they're instrumental if anything is successful, and so they don't just take credit, whereas the godless atheists want to take all credit. So Sukadev wants to move by the direction of the Lord. Who inspired Brahma. Yeah. Vedic truths are not theoretical, but they're perfect descriptions of truth. Shukadev is going to present them as such. And he's going to repeat things which ultimately are coming from Krishna, because Krishna is the father of Vedanta knowledge and the knower of Vedanta. And so this can be disseminated as it is by Shukadev, because he's a humble servant. And the second paragraph intelligent person can see that no material creation can come up without the spiritual touch. So therefore the source of all truths is the Supreme Spirit and not matter. The Lord first entered the vacuum of the universe and things developed from there. So similarly, he is super soul, and therefore everything is done by him so beautifully. The 16 material elements were developed by him and then shared for their enjoyment. And this arrangement of the sharing was made possible by the energy of the Lord. And the living entities can only pray to him to understand it properly. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Shukadev prays for the mercy of the Lord, not only for being helped personally in presenting the truth, but also for helping others to whom he would like to speak. Okay, verse 24. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of Vasudev, who compiled the Vedic scriptures. The pure devotees drink up the nectarian transcendental knowledge dropping from the lotus-like mouth of the Lord. So it's appropriate because Shukadev, who's speaking, he got his knowledge from Vyas. So it's appropriate that he offers obeisances to Vyas. Yeah, which he does, right at the end. This is the last of his prayers, more or less. Yeah. So anyway, Prabhupada gives kind of esoteric explanation that the nectar from the mouth of Lord Krishna is transferred to his different consorts, and thus they learn the finer arts of music, dance, dressing, decorations, and all such things which are relished by the Lord. So the process of the distribution of knowledge from one mouth and then being reproduced by another mouth, it includes that too. These things are not mundane. And the transcendental knowledge is unknown to the conditioned souls. So Vyas compiled it to revive the lost memory of the conditioned souls, their lost memory about their relationship with the Lord. And so we have to try to learn it from the lotus-like mouth of Vyas or Shukadev. And by this development, Prabhupada says, you can rise to the level of the music and the dance of the Rasa Leela. That's powerful. Otherwise, you won't be able to understand how the Rasa Leela is transcendental. Yeah. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the pure devotees of the Lord, however, can equally relish the nectar in the form of the profound philosophical discourses and in the form of kissing by the Lord in the rasa dance, as there is no mundane distinction between the two. So, and now we conclude with verse 25. My dear King Brahma, the firstborn, on being questioned by Narada, exactly apprised him on this subject as it was directly spoken by the Lord to his own son, who was impregnated with Vedic knowledge from his very birth. Wow. So Prabhupada begins by pointing out that Brahma was born as soon as he was born from the lotus, he was impregnated with Vedic knowledge. And therefore he's known as Veda Garbha, or someone who was a Vedantist from the embryo. Yeah. So anyway, without Vedic knowledge, no one can create anything. And Brahma was impregnated with that knowledge, and then he was able to create the universe, or at least engineer from all the different ingredients provided by the Lord. And therefore, when Narada questioned him, he just told him what he'd heard from the Lord. Lord Brahma told Narada. Then Narada told Vyas, who told Shukadev, and now Shukadev's going to repeat that to Maharaj Parikshit. So Prabhupada, he's coming to the conclusion here. He says theories are useless. Knowledge must be factual. There are many complicated things. There are many complicated things of different sorts, including in Krishna consciousness. And one cannot understand without explanation from one who knows. Particularly, you can't understand Vedic knowledge without explanation from one who knows. And the third paragraph, Shukadev therefore prayed to the Lord for mercy so that he might be able to repeat the message as it was given. And we should understand that, therefore, the statements of creation explained by Shukadev Goswami are not at all, as the mundaners suggest, theoretical, but they're perfectly correct. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, one who hears these messages and tries to assimilate them gets perfect information of the material creation. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.